Greetings, hello, welcome everyone, welcome DevChatter viewers, hello everyone. Hopefully you're having a great Saturday. I know I am. It has been quite a good Saturday so far. Let's see. So in our last stream, we did a Learn to Code stream. It was very fun. If you missed it, you can actually still catch that video in the video section here on Twitch, or you can find a recording over on YouTube once it is up there. It's not there yet, but it will be soon. If you are new here, I want to first off welcome you to the channel. Feel free to get involved in the discussions or the coding itself. If you want to chat with me or any of the other people that are here in the stream, the best ways to do that are either to join our Discord, which you can find links to in the chat or down below the stream or below the video, depending on when you're watching this. If you want to get involved in our projects directly, you can go to our GitHub at github.com/devchatter, where you can find all the code for the stuff that we do here on the stream, with only a couple of exceptions. It's almost all out there on GitHub, so you can find that pretty easily. On YouTube, you can find archives of all of our videos in the past. I think I've only missed like 2 videos, and with like almost 150 episodes, I would call only missing a couple of videos pretty darn good. Okay. I think other things I want to make sure I mention. You can follow me on Twitter, either at Brandonius, or you can follow just the DevChatter Twitter to get only announcements relating to DevChatter. Essentially, I mostly just I retweet things occasionally over there, just so that people see it. And I don't use it for all that much, so if you want, like, you know, to not follow me but just get stuff about DevChatter, that is the way to do it. Okay. So a couple of other things, announcements, small bookkeeping stuff. I want to let you all know that I am talking with some people about getting some more guests on the stream. I am arranging for a guest appearance that I think you all are absolutely going to love. You're going to kind of go crazy if we can manage to get that scheduled. Scheduling is always the difficult part, especially around this time of year. Whether you are celebrating holidays coming up or not, I think a lot of people realize that there are holidays going on. Okay, so last time we were, as I said, working on a Learn to Code stream, and previously we'd been doing a lot of stuff with our game, and I do want to do more stuff with our game, but for now we're not going to work on that one. You can still play the game. It should be turned on, and we'll be able to display here beside me. So if you do want to play that, you can. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there are some useful things there. And welcome.
What a lovely day.
Welcome. I'm gonna guess Multimo. And if I just butchered your name, let me know, and I will try to say it better next time. But welcome. Thank you for following. Greatly appreciated. Good way to start off the stream. So the thing I wanted to work on. I see what you did there, Andy. Yes, so what Andy's referring to when saying the solid stream is I used to do a series called Solid Saturdays. I did it a while back where for a series of Saturdays in a row, we did Solid Saturdays where we took each of the solid principles of object-oriented design. I started off the stream by explaining the solid principle, and then I spent a bunch of time through the stream making sure that we applied that solid principle. So we sort of discussed it as we went and discussed where I had followed it already and where we could improve it. So I'd actually put in a lot of effort to make sure that each episode lined up with a thing needing refactoring to get to that specific solid principle. It was really cool. I am planning on doing another one of those. I don't know if I'm going to line it up the same way I did last time, because that took a lot of effort. That's actually why it took me like 2 months before we could do the Solid Saturday the first time, is because I was prepping our project to have one of each violation ready to go. But it was very fun, so I'm glad people enjoyed it. I am looking forward to doing another one. It will be sometime next year. We're not starting it in December. But we will do another Solid Saturday series, so we can cover those again. I think they are useful. I have thought about covering Solid Saturdays, not in an object-oriented language potentially. So if we do bring on some people and do some like F# or anything like that, I think it would be useful to see that Solid, even though they're the solid principles of object-oriented design, I think it would be very useful to for people to see that they apply to all code, because the idea of each of those principles, while the exact concept in the way that we teach them for object-oriented programming doesn't apply, they still apply very effectively in other programming paradigms. So it's really, really cool. Getting interviewees to explain and give reasons for use of each of the solid principles is my favorite way of catching people. Viewer 89, yeah, that is a very good way to see if people do actually understand these concepts, because there are a lot of ways that they use. They apply at various different levels and in a lot of different programming paradigms. That's not to say if they don't know the principles themselves necessarily that they can't be a good developer, because a lot of developers don't know them by those names, but would still create code that way. But you could present scenarios, for example, where someone could discuss what is good or bad about a specific design, and, you know, just as a thought experiment, and I think that would be very cool as well. So the guys who watched the code without seeing the finale solid series learned bad practices? Watch your code without seeing the finale solid series. No, so Andy, we do try to follow the solid principles here, regardless of whether or not we're focusing on one that day. We do generally try to follow them. Draco, I don't have strong opinions on VS 2019 yet. I will need to mess with it a lot more before I can really give you an answer on that one. So, okay. So we talked about starting up our GameTracker project, and I'm going to go ahead and give that a start. We're going to go ahead and start it up. There we go. Okay, so this is our GameTracker project. You notice a very blank site. We have some basic stuff in it. We just used the scaffolded out pages for now, so it has basic things like... Oh, hang on. Sorry, I forgot. I redid the database. I haven't run this yet, so I need to rerun that so it'll recreate the database. And I think that'll work. There we go. Okay, cool. So we now have our database again. That is not my address. No. Anyway, not that I was going to put my address on there, but so we have games, create new, and oh, hey, cool. Those were already in there. Excellent. That's game number 1. Game number 2. Game number 3. Glad it remembered these. This is useful. So, hang on. That's actually really good. Okay, so something I want all of you to notice here, just to talk to you about what this game is. And the Mike Jolly, welcome. Thanks for following. Greatly appreciated. So, the empty feeling inside when my English needs deciphering. Oh, Andy, did I have to decipher your English? I don't think I was deciphering your English. True, although this is the 3rd stage interview for senior positions only. Yeah, okay, yes. For a higher level position, you do expect someone to know solid. And there are a lot of variances. Okay, so one cool thing I want you all to notice as we do this. So the project that we're working on here is we were starting a basic web project, and in this I just enter in the title and hit create, and the cool thing is it went out and it's trying to just apply these links right here. Now these aren't quite right because it didn't find them correctly. Because that code, I don't remember exactly how that was wired up. We didn't wire that one up. That was sent to us by a pull request, but I think I may have changed the structure. So I didn't really worry about it too much. It's a cool concept, and we only have title really at this point, and we do want to add those links. But that is irrelevant to what we are doing here today. The next thing I want to do is I want to get us some players. So hang on while I click through Abraham Lincoln, hang on, James Wheaton, Brendan Washington, hang on, Abraham Chambers. Did I use any names twice? Nope, I need another name twice. So we'll do James Lincoln. James Lincoln. I don't think we had a James Lincoln. No, there we go. Okay. So there's some duplicates on the first names and duplicates on the last names, so good mix of data. And yes, Viewer is correct in one of those things. One of the big differences between a senior and a junior level dev has nothing to do with technical knowledge. It has to, so some of it has to do with experience to know what types of problems. So experience does help with that kind of thing. And one of the other things that is significant is that in some organizations, the senior devs are sometimes younger than the non-senior devs. It just depends on the individual. And in some organizations, senior is more of a leadership role, and it really varies. So I've always liked the idea that leadership ideas and other things like that are like separate concepts. But that's a big discussion. Okay, so we have some basic data that we've created here. I want to do some game records. So here's what I want to do. I want to create... we have the players control. We have players controller and games controller. I created these as controllers. Really? I did? I don't remember doing that. Really? No, I didn't. They're right there. I must have separately created these. Wow, go me. Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. I'll call that a win. Oops, hang on. So this is going to be a game records controller. We're just trying to keep things simple. So the idea is we want a controller that gives us access to game records so that from our JavaScript we can call this API controller. Yeah, so actually, Andy, that is the point. Is I do think that you can have a senior developer that is, as you phrased, socially awkward. Some people might say like introverted senior developers are common. I look like Tom Hanks. I didn't know that, but thank you. I like Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks and I root for the same baseball team, which is kind of cool. And I know he does. He said so. I mean, he didn't say that he roots for the team. He doesn't know who Tom Hanks doesn't know who I am. I don't think. I don't think. Maybe he does. Okay, so this is not API players. This is API. We want game records. So that is get game records. That's the get on this. This is going to be API game records, and I'm not sure what the filter is going to be. So this is going to be search game records. And this one is going to be post game records. And created at action. There we go. Get game records. Okay. Welcome. Hopefully it says somewhere else what that name is. But thank you for following. Greatly appreciated. Obviously that is not a language I can read. Introvert and socially awkward are a bit different, I'd say, but I get your point. Yeah, that's why I was saying there, Andy. Is like there are a lot of people that can really do the job well of a senior developer, because it does not always necessarily have to do with the social aspect of things, because there are elements of leadership that have nothing to do with social communication of any form. So yes, seniors tend to lead their teams. Nurturing does not mean bring them to the bar on Fridays, although with some organizations it can mean that. Okay, so post game records, so that's going to send up a... and actually I don't think we're ever going to send more than one. So it's going to be post game record. Okay, let's take a look. Did I create a view model for this yet? No, I didn't. Okay, so... create game review, game record view model. What is in this? I kind of want to... is this getting used anywhere? Where's this referenced? Only on that page, and that page isn't really using it. Because we can put it on that page, but I don't really want to. Okay, so I'm going to name it something different. So I'm going to duplicate this for now. And we're going to give this one a better name. So create game record view model. We need to know the game ID, we need to know the players, we need to know the winners, we need to know the teachers. The event date, we need to know when this game happened. So we need to know which game it was, what date it happened, who the players are, who the winners are, who the teachers are. Is there anything else about this game that we need to know? I didn't have that. No, I think that's it. That's the basic information that we need. It's Kevin. Hey, it's going pretty well. Doing some food coding. Awesome, Stoolpenner. Shark Deed. Would you think about making a series on software architecture design patterns like domain-driven design, CQRS, event sourcing? Shark Deed, I have thought about it. I did a couple of episodes where we focused on a specific design pattern. And I might do like a series where we focus on one or the other. If I were, I would probably try to bring on some guests who specialize in those specific ones. So maybe I'll try to get like Steve Smith or Julie Lehrman in for design for a domain-driven design or something like that. There are definitely some interesting things we could do with those. And viewer, I 100% agree with that statement about someone that understands that the importance is not placing blame on an individual person, but is instead focused on resolving the problem. So, forward thinking is a huge thing. I 100% agree. That is one of the most valuable traits that almost anyone can have that's involved in software development, is focusing on what you're trying to accomplish, not trying to find someone else to place blame on. And I think that applies way beyond even just programming. Or I should say beyond software development. Let's call this record. And that's going to break a little bit. I did a little bit of copy pasta here for this, but that's fine. Game records controllers getting a repository that we get back a collection of those. We're going to ask the repository to get them for us. Why does it not like those? Because the repository can't make that because it's not the right type. So this is going to be game record. List of game record. This is going to be stored in that as game records. And we're going to say select, and I will just do X because I don't have it. So we're going to say new So we will add a constructor to that can create one from the model, because I think that's useful. But I think it's also useful to have an empty constructor here, so we're going to have one. So we're going to have an empty constructor so we can create and just use an object initializer here. And then we're also going to have one that can be created from a game record object and just create itself out of that. So if we had one in the database, we can come right out and just use it. How long have I been coding? Today, I've been coding for 24 minutes. Welcome. You have not missed too much. We are just starting. We're adding a new thing to our project. I'm going to set up a little bit of the back end here. I'm setting up the basic controller that we're going to do. I'm going to write some unit tests for this in a minute. I just want to, we copy-pasted this from one of our other ones, so then I'm going to write some tests for this piece. And I want to get this back end part working, and then I'm going to do a separate stream later where we wire up the front end using Vue.js. So that's actually the plan for this. We are preparing the canvas for the solid teachings. No problem. And thanks for stopping by and asking the question. Andy, your question about preparing the canvas for solid teachings. So solid is still involved in this. So part of the idea, a couple of things. So we can talk about solid as part of this. So I have this view model here. That is a basic object. It has a single responsibility, which its responsibility is handling the data that comes up from the creation of one of these model objects. The nice thing about it is that I can put any restrictions I want in how they are created. And that sometimes differs from how we deal with the actual model object itself. So understanding, of course, that if I get one of these, I don't just immediately save it, I have to translate it. So this is not the same as just saving one that maybe was edited by an administrator in the back end. So that's part of what the deal is with that. You get a lot of added security in your code, and I don't mean like security from malicious intent, I mean security in that things aren't going to go wrong. You're not going to have bugs, because you were careful about how you did things. Okay, search game records. We are taking in a filter of some kind, and that is a name filter? I'm not sure that's the filtering we want to do. We may need to look at this one. ID maybe for this? Game records ID? So 2. Let's make this game record ID. There's the initial basic filter for, and that's not the policy. And it's certainly not players that we want to return. We want to return back an OK of game record view model. Game records. Alright, I have a couple of things I need to change. So when we call into a repository, we are passing in essentially the filtering logic. So we give our repository STHO. Yeah, so some people can... So if you want to be strict about it, you can say not to put that constructor in there, and we can instead either create a class that creates those from them, essentially creating a factory, or alternately we can do an extension method style approach. There are other ways to do it, so it treats it as like you would instead do something like, let me explain. So instead of calling this, you might say like, let me just show you what it would look like. Really, the code wouldn't be here. You might say from model, right? And then the from model would take in a game record, right? It would take in one of these, and you would call it like that. So if you want to be strict about it, you can write this one. And I may switch to that at some point, but I'm generally okay with this one. I give a little bit of wiggle room to these sorts of things because... realistically, this amount of difference isn't huge. But yes, if you want to be strict about it and you're worried that your team might use it, so some of these restrictions that we do in the way that we code things are to make sure that we, the developers like us, don't make mistakes. And if we're not worried about how we use it, then don't worry about it. But some things you do. So for example, just to give you a little explanation, over on the right-hand side in my Solution Explorer, you might notice that I have a lot of projects. I have 5 separate projects where things are. Now, these project lines don't really need to be here. I mean, realistically, a dev could get away with just one single project, and as long as you're careful about your dependencies, you won't have a problem. But the reason we put these in here is because these help us make sure that we don't make mistakes. So they're kind of boundaries that help enforce the rules that we want to be there. That's why we package things up this way. It helps us as a development team not make mistakes. So in this case, I'm not terribly worried about this one being an extra dependent, like having the second constructor being an extra responsibility for the class, although it's also really easy to extract out that second constructor as an extension method. So if it does become a problem, it's really easy to fix. So that's the neat thing. And thank you for keeping me honest on that one. I really do appreciate it. How to write a vector to a button to make basic movement. Oh, yeah, that would be a thing for an entirely separate episode. Not gonna tackle that one just yet. Okay, so there we go. So as I said, I'm not terribly worried about it right now. We can move it later if we need to. Not a huge deal. So I want to add a new specification for game records. So what I am gonna do is I am going to make a new class that I'm going to call Game Record Policy. And a policy really is kind of that's a term that I like to use. The thing I like about it is that these are basically like a factory for specifications is sort of the way that it works. So this is basically a factory for building a specification. And a specification is this. It's essentially the encapsulation of a set of filtering logic. So that's why it is basically an expression of function of T of bool of criteria. I know, it's a mouthful. Don't worry about that. The short answer is it is a way of storing a function. So this is a function, so I can store a method in this object, and that method is something that takes in a t and returns back a boolean. So it's basically any kind of filter. So I could say, hey, you give me a game record. In my function, I'm going to check and see if it matches the ID I'm looking for. If it does, I'm going to return true. If it does not, I return false. So we can then use that in our where clause or anything like that. So keeps it encapsulated nicely. Do you think AutoMapper adds way too much complexity or magic by solving this problem? Multimode, no, I don't. I started using AutoMapper, geez, I don't know, might have been a decade ago. It was a long time ago. At this point, I do love AutoMapper, but I don't always put it in right away. So there are a lot of things where that's the solution, but I don't like to put it in until we're doing it a lot. So I like to delay adding in extra stuff until it feels needed. So that's kind of the idea, because otherwise I could go and be like, oh yeah, we start off by grabbing these 20 dependencies that do all the code for us, and then we start wiring things together, and you usually end up with really complicated solutions when you do that. So that's part of the reason why I hold off a little bit. Okay. So this is our, whoops, hang on, let me just, whoa, tooling trying to help me here. Alright, so there is our game record policy, and I want to have, I can get away with just stealing that one, so I don't need to write anything special for this right now. So here's what we're going to do. I want to say game record policy dot by ID. So this is the new policy we created. And actually, I'm going to do this first. So we're going to put in the game record ID. This isn't going to be called game records. This is going to be called view models. So we're going to return back the view models. And now, when it comes to naming things where you actually put in the type, there is a time where that is acceptable. So if you've heard that that naming where you put in like string or whatever, the only time that's acceptable is if you are explicitly changing types in that code. So at the point where we're using this, the type is significant information because of that. So we're going from the records to the models. So we could just call this records and then models, or models and then view models, for example. Because other than that, it doesn't really matter. We're just translating. We're not really doing anything with it other than just getting it, transforming it, and returning it back. So one important thing to remember. So a lot of people, back when MVC came out, this was a huge thing. Yes, I will explain that in a moment, the expression of function again thing. I will explain that in just a moment. What I do want to make sure that I explain is this. Give me 1 second to finish this bit of code I'm writing here. So I said... So we put this in... that's game record view model. And I want to pass in X. Okay. Okay, let me see if this is... And then return those back. Okay. And I have not done the last one yet. We will get to that in a second. I'm going to answer a couple of questions. Okay. And yes, Multimo, exactly. Keep things simple until you actually do need the complexity. So... I am going to guess that your name is Mag, but I'm not 100% on that. MMAAGG34. And thanks for the questions also. They're really great. I will absolutely explain what the expression of function of T of bool was. So we will take a look at that really fast. That was right over here. So first off, I'm going to simplify this for the explanation. So... And, Bureau, thanks for that follow. I greatly appreciate it. I assume that means you're enjoying the stream. So, I'm going to write it like this. This won't work for my code. I do need to have that expression in there, but this is an easier concept to understand. So I want people to see this one. So, as soon as that derp disappears, you'll see this code again. And what we're going to be looking at is a function of T of bool. So essentially, this means writing a method, and I will write one here. Wait, hang on. Oh, this is an interface. Yep. Derp. Hang on. Class, my class. So if I wanted to make a class that was an I specification of, say, I don't know, string, right? Actually, I should use something more complicated. We will do player. What? Player. What are you doing? Okay. So, essentially, in this my class, I am supposed to assign a function of player of bool to criteria. Now, I can do this, and I will show you how. I can say private, my function, we're going to make it a Boolean function that takes in a player, returns false. This is a function. Now what I can actually do is that is a function of player of bool. So I can actually do this. I can say criteria equals my function. And now you might say, well, hang on a second, if you can just do that, why isn't criteria just a method you implement? And there's an answer for that. And that is that I want to be able to control what that method is. I want to be able to make changes to it. I want to be able to have a difference. So notice that my function, I cannot do a by ID or something like that. I mean, I could, but then it's set. So what I'm able to do instead is change it at the time that I need it to be different. So I can actually modify this type. So let me show you how I use it. Let me put this back to the way it was. Ignore the expression, I will explain that separately. For now, pretend that that's just a function of t of bool. That is a separate concept to explain. So now when I go over to my game record policy, I might want to create a new policy. So let's say that I wanted to make, I can actually do this now. I can say, I want a new implementation of my interface, and here's how I can create it. I can say static game record policy. So this is going to be a static method that returns a game record policy, and a game record policy is an I specification of game record, just so we're clear. So you'll see it is one of these. It is an I specification of T. So I could put that in there actually. There, unneeded, but the interface is in here, so should make sense. Okay, so I could say by let's say including player. I could make this method right here, and I could say return new. I don't want to return a game record. I want to return a game record policy. Now it wants an expression. So this is a game record, and I'm going to say that I want a game record with a play record any, hang on, play record, and let me simplify these just for reading it. So this is a more complicated one. Play record dot player ID equals player ID. So essentially, I can get away with this code. Is ID not an int? It is. Oh, okay, there we go. I was like, why do I have a squiggly? I shouldn't have a squiggly. Okay, so that essentially becomes our filter. Hey, Ultralord, happy Saturday. Okay, so there's the basic concept. So this is part of the reason why, is essentially what we can do is we can create a specification of any filter we want without essentially creating a whole new class or type. Essentially all we have to do is just give it a new filter. So this would be including a player. So I could say, you know, game record policy with player. So this would be getting me any game records where this player was one of the people that played the game. No problems, Ultralord. Welcome back. Glad you're here. Schedule's getting in the way. I know people can't always make it to every stream that I do. I do a lot of streams. We actually stream usually 4 times a week here on DevChatter. So I could go by game instead of by player. And these are how I create my filters, essentially. And then I could say play records dot whoops, I didn't want play records. Game ID equals game ID. There we go. So Nice, S&B. Yeah, so essentially the idea of the interface is it allows us to just create objects that have a filter. And so that's a storable, reusable filter. We can use it over and over in our code. So we get that kind of power with it. It's really neat. So this makes a filter that we can return and use. Instead of just creating a new one each time, we could save that one, we can reuse it, we can apply extra things to it. We could maybe say whether or not when using the filter, whether it should be cached. And this essentially is not the data access from a database. This has encapsulated our concept of filtering data. So we could filter the collection in memory with this, we could filter it out of a database with this, we could pull it from a cached set of information. So let's say that it's very common that we cache all of the players who are in our database, but instead of individually caching them based on their ID, we just want to cache the whole collection. We can then apply this filter the same way we do to the database to the data that is in that cache, and that's what makes this so powerful and such a nice concept, is that we can essentially reuse it. So that's the idea, is we can just pass these in. And, you know, I could put in hard-coded values. For example, maybe we had like an is enabled on them. I could put, you know, game record, you know, is valid, right? Or counts for stats. Maybe there were some booleans on that record that I want to say, yeah, we need to make sure that those are always true. We only include those ones. So if you're doing soft deletes or something like that, you can just put in your filtering logic, hey, I don't want to include those, and no one has to specify it, and that rule always gets applied. Because you put it here centrally in your filtration code, you can be sure that's how it works every single time. So you essentially keep that out of the other code. So that's kind of the idea there. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good explanation. I do still want to explain the last piece that you asked about, which was, in the specification, there's the extra piece that's the expression. And this really just deals with the way that that is stored. So by saying that this is an expression of this, it tells C# and .NET to keep this data as an expression. So essentially it keeps it in this form. So normally, if you were to just write one of these and store it as a function, C# and .NET will kind of get rid of that for you. It'll just make it into a new thing, and you lose the ability to have the information of this expression. So this code here gets kept. It gets stored as this code. And the reason we do that, there's two reasons. First off, it is possible, though kind of messy, to store this data and then take it, turn it into a cache key. So you can do that from the expression. I have done that before. It gets a little weird, but you can. The other valuable thing about keeping it as an expression, some object relational mappers, like Entity Framework, can take this expression information, as long as you were using an expression of function of t, and it can take this data and convert that into SQL. So the code I write here translates to SQL and is applied on the database, not on the in-memory collection. And that is the most important aspect of this. So I don't have to pull all the data from the database and then apply it, but I can still use it as if I were doing in-memory operations. So I get the convenience of in-memory and C# filtration, and it still applies in the database. So hopefully that gets you the explanation of what we're doing there. I think it's a really cool thing, and I'm glad you asked the question because it gave me a chance to talk about that. Tectonic, welcome. Thanks for following. Greatly appreciated. Hopefully that means you're enjoying the stream. And welcome everybody. I love seeing all the chat in the stream. You are all awesome. Greatly appreciated. Okay. DevChatter Brendan, how about that battle with JavaScript and Flutter currently happening? Just an opinion. I don't have a strong opinions on that. There are always big arguments about stuff that go on. Question, does an Entity Framework cache stuff for us? Yes, Ultralord. Entity Framework will cache things for you automatically by default. I know you've done it for a reason, but why have you implemented a cache layer outside of that? So there's a couple of reasons, Ultralord. Some of the ways that EF cache works, I don't always agree with. So in some projects, I will actually turn its caching off in favor of doing some of my own, because some of the... So let's put it this way, cache invalidation is hard, and I will tell you that I used to work with someone that I would describe as one of the experts in caching in the software development industry, and I worked with him for quite a while, so that's kind of just one of those, I like implementing caching myself, probably because I like caching. So that could just be a me thing. You do not need to implement your own cache. You can leverage the Entity Framework one, but there's some things you can do. Cache invalidation is very hard. I've done some very advanced things with caching in systems before, and you can make them very fast if you have data in memory. So it's all good stuff. I didn't understand all, but it felt as you turn type stuff into quite a loose one. Could be very wrong. Felt as if you turned type stuff into... yeah, so part of the reason why we do this is we want to have loose coupling between things, if that's what you were saying, Andy. Glad you guys learned something. Hey, Fuel Snable. It was many years since I did C# for real, but I remember expression being slow to create, like 1 millisecond per second. As soon as compiling an expression, is that also quick these days? Fuel Snable. So yeah, creation of an expression and compilation of it is not too bad. Also keep in mind that we create one expression, then apply it multiple times. We also compile it once and then run it many times, so that 1 millisecond per expression is not a big deal when you're just creating one and compiling it once in order to use it many times. But yes, there are some things like the creation of a regular expression, for example, takes some time. So that's one of those reasons why, if you are going to be using regular expressions repeatedly, you want to make sure you create it once and then apply it many times, not recreate the regular expression every time through a loop, for example. Hey, Will, welcome. You're not that late to the party. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Hey, Stool. Thanks, Stool Penner. I really appreciate it. That is a nice comment. Isn't the battle rather between Flutter and React? JavaScript will be used in both cases. Sure. This looks similar to ASP.NET Core authorization policies. Zoltalord, I don't know which thing you're talking about. I am not currently making any authorization policy stuff in ASP.NET Core. And yes, Will, yep. You can compile regular expressions too. Yes, that is part of the idea, is creation in advance of things that need to get run repeatedly. It's part of the reason why compiling instead of interpreting all the time can be a performance benefit. Yes, so Fuel Snable, just using it for a filter like this, the performance of an expression is just fine. Okay, so... post-game record, so we're going to pass up a create game record. That's a record. We're going to check whether model state is valid. Player creates from that. Now we need to do something with it. Search game records, and then game record ID equals we'll call this the view model. Call that record.id. Record. Hey, Crimson Green. Welcome. Hang on, let me see. Policy, have you ever coded an interpreter? Oh, no. So stool petter. No. Not for that one. I meant like the idea of compiling something advanced. The concept is still the same. No, I've not. Thanks, Ultralord. Yeah, chat catch-up is always a thing. Might as well compile regular expressions to binary, never going to want to read them again anyway. Oh, they're not that hard to read. Yeah, so no one tries to fix regular expressions, and they work well enough for a lot of the stuff we want to do. Why is the name of the action search game records if it just takes an ID? I was doing that as a convention based on name, so this one really should be like, you know, this is really get a game record by ID. Originally, I converted this from one, so get game record by ID, what that one should be. Good call. If we wanted search would take in a filter of some kind. So search would be one, search by game ID, search by date, search by something or else like that. So yes, good call. Yep. And I guess it could just be get game record. Yeah, it'll just be get game record, because we're getting it by ID. That is explicitly the one. Okay, so post game record is going to take in the create view model. And that's also why, by the way, why I love pair programming, is naming things is one of those, everyone can come up with great names for stuff, sorts of things. So you pretty much just ask people and they will come up with great names. We don't want record to be here, so let's do this. Record equals record, var record equals, how do we want to create this? Here's where I might separate. I may actually switch these now, so we're gonna say public game record to game record. I want to put this logic elsewhere. To do move this elsewhere. But for now, that will make this compile. So we're gonna say view model to game record. That's not where it's gonna live. We're gonna move it elsewhere, but I just want to make this compile. There we go. Record, create record. So this, I will use the explicit type for that. And actually, let's just call that game record. So game record ID equals game record.id, game record, get game record. Okay, that works. Created an action. Post game record. Game record, game record, game record. Move that there. We can we can easily see that that is from body. What's that complaining about? It lacks an await. Okay, I'm not worried about it. I didn't have anything. We didn't make that async, which maybe we should make that async, and then we wouldn't have a problem there. Wouldn't be complaining. Okay. Namer in chief. All my variables are foo123. Yes, there you go. Best naming. Naming things as well as the hardest thing about programming, and that's actually one of the big reasons for pair programming. Naming things really is one of the most valuable things about pairing. The other advantage of that is that if you were otherwise going to name something poorly, you don't, because the other person's like, wait a minute, I don't get why that's named that way. Simon, you're correct that regular expression from Fuel Snable does look like a terminal from Fallout 4. And yes, Will, that's actually, so the time wasted coming up with a good name is another big one. Do I see a game record to create game record view model converter coming up? That won't be the name, but yes, we will have a little converter, except I'm not going to write it that way. Instead, what I'm going to do is I would do something like this. Maybe extensions. Whoops. That is not what I meant to do. I apparently hit the wrong key. Extensions. And wasn't even thinking there. I derped for a moment. And then I could have, game record converters. And I could do something like this. And the advantage here is that this gets us an easy namespace, so it's the view model viewmodels.extensions gets us all the extensions related to view model conversions. So I think that using makes a lot of sense if you included this when using view models. And extension methods to do it are a nice way. And part of the reason I say that is because if you're using extension methods for these, it wouldn't matter whether or not you were using AutoMapper, for example. And I'm generally not concerned about, because of the way like just conversion from one data type to another happens, I'm not worried about like removing these from unit testing. I don't consider your mapping logic to be something that is a dependency that needs to be removed. So, well, that's too bad, light-skinned Kanye. I will say, like, a lot of people have strong opinions about languages. I don't consider C# to be a bad language. I don't consider JavaScript to be a bad language. There are plenty of languages that people like using, and whatever one you want to use, awesome, go for it. If it's a programming language that lets you solve the problem you're trying to solve, go for it. So I want to get game record from the model, and we will say that's what we want to get back, and this is going to be to game record. It's going to take in a this create game record view model that I'm just going to call source. So for mappers, I like source and destination almost, so var. But I'm actually just going to call it game record. New game record. Turn game record. Yep, totally done. Throw a new not implemented exception. There we go. That looks perfect. Okay, cool. So that'll do well. So actually, let's just get rid of that from here. And then the other one was essentially a from.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Echo Strike, hey! 4 months in a row. Diablo 4 confirmed, exactly. I hope we get Diablo 4 confirmed. That sounds awesome. And welcome, Echo Strike. Glad you're here. And thanks for that 4-month resub. Greatly appreciated. Can we get some hype in the chat there, everybody? Hype in the chat! Hype, hype! I like to create ctorps for converters so I can never miss a field in there. Oh yeah, so there's stuff about that, but yeah, I agree. There's some challenges there. Let me see. you don't even have to. Trouble with extension method is the poor tooling for importing namespaces for them. So Simon, they're not that bad with ReSharper's not bad with them. Don't even respond to this. Yeah, but that's the point I'm trying to make, Andy. So I don't really care that he says that. The thing is, I want to make sure that everyone else in here knows that that the languages you choose are totally okay. Injectable mappers help in knowing what your dependencies are in one place. Yeah, Simon, that is actually a very good point. Okay, so, what was the other one? Two view model. Let's switch this. Game record. View model. Okay, so there we go. So I don't need that anymore. Wait. Yeah, I don't need that one anymore. Because that's to the basic view model. Okay. So let's get rid of those, which means I don't need the basic constructor either. View model to game record, and then this one should be complaining. Yep. So I want to say x dot to view model. Okay. So I can obviously pull that logic into here. So I can do this to essentially wire up the default creation of this set, and it works out pretty nicely. So I can make one of these, but I also like having the default constructor where I can just pull in whatever things I want, if that makes sense. So if I do want to map each thing and create this, sure, I can create one of these. But if I want to have the default empty constructor like this, where anyone can call and fill in any subset of the data, I like the empty constructor for a couple of things. First off, some tooling, like Entity Framework, for example, and other ORMs, like to create objects from the empty constructor. And because of that, they hydrate without a constructor for each of the properties. I need to have one anyway. The other thing that I like about it is occasionally in a unit test, I might want to just fill in some subset of the data because I'm not testing the rest of it, and I can create the whole thing. But you can also use either builders or some tools that auto-generate data-filled objects, and those will do that as well. A lot of times, again, those work with default constructors. So because so many tools like using them, what I will do is I will sometimes create the constructor that does all the properties, like this one does, and then other times I will just use an empty one. So it depends. So, short answer. But right now, I'm not even going to have a constructor, because I'm not planning on creating one of these just yet, if that makes sense. So, yeah, so it would make sense a lot of times to have both. But if again, I don't create the one that takes in all the fields until I need it, is the short answer there. Crimson, I have no idea. Hopefully you can. That game does look awesome. I am really looking forward to trying it. Depends on the reason for the class doesn't support. Yeah, so Will is correct. Some classes you would always want to create with all the properties. Some you wouldn't, and it really does depend on what you're using it for. Should you use database first or model first? So I prefer model first. I should say I prefer code first. if we're talking Entity Framework, I prefer code first. Create everything else from that, because you can define your database from your models. I usually like to think of how we're going to work in code to begin with. But if you already have a database first is not actually that bad. You can always map up code to the database. It just depends on preference on that one. But I prefer code first because you tend to end up with easier to test code that way, and we can adjust our models the way that we want. If someone wants the database to do something else, then yeah, you can change it for that. There we go, Crimson. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so we have our little converters, and those tend to work. So they're not wired up because they still have throw not implemented exceptions, which is fine. We don't need to worry about that. And did I leave these in here? Yes, I did. I don't need that. It should not be getting called anymore, I don't think. Which means I don't need those, because we simplified that. There's what we left. That does not... I must have Control-Z'd. I thought I did that already, but maybe I didn't. To view model. Get game record. Oh, that's the individual one. I bet I did all of them, didn't I? Yes, I called it there. I didn't get rid of that one. Excellent. I missed one. Good catch, compiler. Good catch. In most commercial work, you never have the luxury of a choice, as there's almost always at least one Exactly, Simon. So usually the way that you end up getting to go code first, as Simon's alluding to, is whenever you get to create the new project or something like that, where it's going to be a separate thing. You do occasionally get greenfield work, but that's why I pointed out a lot of times you already have an existing database, so you wire up based on that. I like to think database first because the database schema is important for the performance. Properties of the database code is secondary to data and schema. Burning bridges is usual. There you go, Fuel Snable. So yeah, it actually does depend. So part of the idea is that you can build, so you can have your database structure in mind. So you can create the database as you want, and then you can actually do code first EF in order to do that. So if you mean just planning generally, then in a lot of systems, database first will matter because performance is going to matter. But again, it depends on your code base. There are a lot of like internal business applications that people will do that are just along the lines of all you're doing is like data entry for an individual organization. If you're building one of those kinds of apps, then you clearly do not need a lot of, as long as you don't mess up your database, it generally works. So yes. In-memory databases in EF Core are really, really great for doing little dev projects. So if you want to just try something out, you want to spike a solution, an in-memory database in Entity Framework is really, really nice. Okay, so get game records, get game record, that does work. Okay. Get rid of that controller. We're in the wrong project. Over here. I have a couple of things. We're ignoring that because it's super annoying. I have this code that I am going to not deal with yet. That we want to commit. That we don't want to. Sorry guys, I have some stuff that I should have stashed before we started this. I forgot that was going and I didn't check when we started. That is my bad. I screwed that up because I was in the wrong project in GitHub here, and I was like, yeah, I don't have any changes, let's get started. And I forgot that I had some changes sitting here from this morning. And yes, I was working on those this morning. So I'm going to commit this and then stash those so that they don't become a problem in the future. It's just that. That's that. That's that. Okay. Game record controller and view models. There we go. Branch. This is game record. What are we doing? Game record. We're almost like building up the controller, building up the access. You know what? I'm just gonna call it game records because we're storing game records. So adding game records, controllers, and view models. There we go. Commit that. Publish this branch. These are all related to the other stuff. Okay, cool. That we're going to leave alone. But the other ones we're all going to stash. They're related. We're just not doing them right now. We should specify that. Okay. Let me go into that. Whoops. Okay. So we are in here. I don't know if you guys can actually see that or not. Get status, get status. Whoops. get status. Okay, so get stash. Were there any inversion files? There were inversion files, weren't there? Okay, we'll stash those. Ooh, there we go. Okay. Now I need to go to the startup, because that's actually where I discarded a change, and I actually want to make that check consent needed false. I do not need consent for using cookies in my local development. That's what that's complaining about. So that ought to be fixed. Okay, there's our only change. Fantastic. Okay, what was going on in chat while I was messing with Git? Why is the action still marked red? Oh, I will explain that in a moment. What do you use to cache database queries? Is it built into EF, or do you have to use Reddish Memcache? That is a fantastic question. So first off, there's a caching layer built into Entity Framework, so I do not need to use one because I have that. I will often use an in-memory cache for a lot of the caching that I like to do. Sometimes I cache things in addition to what Entity Framework does because I know that it didn't cache it the way that I want it cached. Because sometimes I want that data pulled in and cached differently than how Entity Framework will. Because I know something is going to be accessed all the time, for example. So that's why I like having my own cache access, because Entity Framework's cache is essentially just you access the data this way, whereas I sometimes want to have a preloaded cache, and as far as I know, Entity Framework has yet to build us a way to do that. So that's part of the reason why I will sometimes still build my own cache, even when using Entity Framework. Okay, are you thinking about doing read-only live shares in the future? STHO, yeah, so I actually set up to do that a long time ago, so we are going to be doing some of those. And part of the reason why, I actually a long time ago set those up as a Patreon thing, so that we don't have like tons of people connecting in. We do limit that behind that, so patrons of the channel do get access to the live share sometimes. Specifically, I've been waiting for the live share team to build in one layer of security that they have yet to get us. And that is essentially we want read-only where they can't access any debug symbols ever. That's the only thing that they haven't gotten us. So when we do connect people in that read-only way, it's important that we don't go into debug mode, because I think they can still read some of those values. I don't think they've locked that down yet. So that's the short answer to that question. And the action is still marked as red, not by Visual Studio. So this is not Visual Studio telling me that. That is actually, I believe that is ReSharper that has highlighted that red, and it is incorrect about that. That is the valid action name, but it's a bug in ReSharper. So there's the short answer to that. Okay. Okay, so that is turned on. This is running here. There we go. And I want to actually store that data somewhere. So what did I set up for this? We have just the EF core repository and data context, and then we have some of those. record view model. Good question. We got a couple of things that we want to do here. So I do not want to start the view code today, so I think I'm going to detour, because this is the point where I want to start sending that up, and I think that's as far as I want to get. So here's what I'm going to do. I am actually going to pop off that stash that I just did there. So we're going to pop that off the stash, bring it back in here. So these changes are back in here. I will continue that on a later stream. I am instead going to have us work on something else. The bot has said paper 3 times. Well, Janisku, that actually is more likely to be random than not. And that's the funny thing about that, is a lot of people look at random results and say, hey, it said, you know, it's too repetitive. I believe it was like, I think it was Apple that got yelled at about that. People complained because it would, like, their random shuffle would play the same song twice in a row sometimes. And people complain, they're like, no, we want it to be random. And it's like, that is random. Sometimes it will play the same song again. You want non-random. You want a non-random even distribution. So, which we don't do here. That bot can pick paper 3 times in a row if it likes. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue on with our other project that we were working on last time, because that sounds fun. So I'm going to switch over to our game jams over here. And if anybody else wants to try the game we're working on, it is actually available right here. I will post this link in here. Non-recurring, there you go. There was an online poker game that got cracked because of the random number generation. There you go, Will. That is definitely a problem. Yeah, non-reoccurring. That is a good description of what people are looking for, despite the fact that it is in fact not random. We like randomness. .NET run watch. Let's go ahead and get our web project running here. Good luck, Crimson. Yeah, so sometimes you do need to put a harness on the randomness to control the way it works. Okay, so localhost. What? Did I not? Okay. So apparently I didn't make it HTTPS. Or is that running on a different? No, localhost 5000. Should be listening to it. I don't know. I won't worry about it. Ah, got it. It just wants to do that. So I'm not going to worry about it. We won't run it in HTTPS because, hey, I'm just doing some basic stuff here. Winner! Nice, Crimson. Glad to hear it. They figured out the seed? I assume they were playing enough that they could figure out what the randomness had seeded, like what the value was, and then they could figure out that. That is amazing, Will. I assume the website was seeding based on time, and if they could figure out the moment that the server restarted or something, by just finding which one would have predicted the cards that people were getting, something like that. Yeah, random number generators aren't really random. But they're not easily detected by humans what the variance is, so they might as well be random for a lot of us. Okay, so let's take a look. So here's our little Tetris game. There are some things I want to change about it. It's not perfect. It's not bad. It's not bad. I like what we set up last time. So a couple of things I want to change as we're looking at this code. First off, I want to sort of extract out some of our display logic. Yeah, sorry, Janiska, I don't think I have a random in there, but we do have some other stuff. Rigged! Rigged. Yeah, it's not rigged. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some of this. So first off, let's make I'm gonna do one of these. If you know the random algorithm and it is simple enough, you can figure out the seed from the sequence of cards you receive. Yeah, Fuel Snable, I think that's the idea. Yeah, there are ways that people are able to figure that kind of stuff out. Okay, so I want to export class screen display. So we're going to create this. We're going to make a constructor that takes in the... What have we been calling the... Not sure what it's going to need. It's going to need the canvas, and it can be the thing that actually gets the context. So we'll say this dot underscore canvas equals canvas. This dot underscore context equals. Now, who was grabbing the context in the past? This was. Underscore context equals this underscore canvas get context 2D. Okay, there we go. And that's an underscore. So that gets us 2D context. So there's our screen. STHO, there a list of to-dos. There are issues on GitHub for a number of our projects. If people are interested in contributing to them, you are welcome to send us pull requests or make suggestions in the issues sections on GitHub. I will post a link to our GitHub down there. So you can find a few of the projects that we work on here on the stream over there, including the chatbot, which is actually where we make a roguelike game that can be played on the stream. And actually, I could start that up and show all of you. But I'm not planning on playing one of those right now. But it displays right next to me, right over here, and you can play the roguelike during the stream. Then we also have this, which is our little game jam thing. We didn't quite finish our game at Tetris, so that's actually why I'm trying to get in here. I want to do a little bit of cleanup on some of these things. I want to separate out the screen display code so that we treat that a little bit differently. So here's the idea. So we want to do a screen display, so maybe we'll create that at start, but I don't want the piece to know about its own drawing. Maybe it'll know its color, but I don't want it to do the drawing. Who uses context? Oh man! That was too many things. Nope. That does, and then looks like everything else is in here. Yeah, okay, so we can move these. So clear canvas. Draw frame, draw background. These don't live here anymore. They go in screen display. It needs a basic, like, draw. That maybe we call on update. I'm going to steal those for now. I'm going to put those in draw. That's what we're going to do there. We're going to clear canvas, draw the background, draw the frame. Ooh, does it know about the... Hang on. You think the command pattern together with the repository pattern is reasonable if you want undo and redo functionality? Specimen, I think you can do that way. what do you mean by undo? Do you mean like automated undo when something happens, at which point you should be doing a unit of work style pattern? Or do you mean undo as in like a user can later do an undo of their operation if they want to? Using the repository from the commands, I ask because searching, I see most people talking about choosing only one of them. No, repository and command pattern are can absolutely be used together. You're kicking the kids out of the house. They don't live here anymore. Yeah, the code I pulled out, the extracted code. Yeah, I got it, Will. And it's at this point you'll be wishing you had a TS transpiler to tell you what you broke. Yeah, Simon, exactly. Undo for the user. Yes, so Specimen, where you would, I do think command pattern and the repository pattern would work very well together for that. And Will, so thinking on the stack there, you could take a stack approach, but keep in mind that if you're doing web dev, that you are going to need to maintain that in some way. So, but yes, Will is correct. If you want to maintain like the list of steps that they took, maintaining a stack that you can create command objects from to do them in reverse, that absolutely is a way. So what Will just mentioned there is very good. And welcome, thanks for that follow. Yep, that one right there. And I will not be able to pronounce that name. I'm guessing it's Lishif or something like that. But welcome, thanks for following. Hopefully I didn't butcher that horribly, but who knows. So welcome. Okay, so these aren't going to be here. We're instead going to do that. Let's go ahead and create the screen display object. Do we want to create it at start? I think we do. Let's create it at start. This dot underscore screen display equals new screen display. We are going to pass in the canvas, this dot canvas, which actually, do we even want that to have the canvas? I'm not sure we do. We'll let it have it. Okay, context. You're gone. You're out. You're out. No more. Screen display. Draw. Get rid of that. As part of drawing, it needs to draw the piece. It needs to draw the blocks. Okay, so the block manager. So this needs to know about the piece, but we certainly don't want them having their own draw. I don't think. I cannot think of a reason why we would want to have them do that. So essentially, then that would mean that we're going to need it to have the screen display is going to need to know about the piece that it's drawing. The piece and this dot piece and this dot block manager, I think, is what we want to have there. So we'll do that for now. Hey Greendolf, welcome. As per our last conversation, I checked a bunch of online Tetris games and they all allow moving left and right at least one square after reaching the bottom. Yes, Will! No, we allow that too. When you reach the bottom, you can still move. Let me show you. Hang on. So we can go down to the bottom, and then you can still move left and right. It's when that last drop happens that's when it locks you. So if I press down one more time, then it locks, and it stops, right? But I can get here, and I can still shift a space if I want to. But because we don't have the automated piece, that's representing that final, like, triggered drop. Because we don't have the triggering one, that's the idea. Thanks, Crimson. Yeah, no, I have not wired up control for you guys to do that. This is just a JavaScript game. So, no, we don't have the interaction on this one. Okay, so inside of screen display, after we draw these two pieces, I want to take this code here, move that over to here. We're going to put those there. And now you might be saying, but wait, you haven't moved the logic yet. It's like, yeah, I know. Piece, block manager, there we go. So I could do this. And then that technically works for now-ish. Yeah! That's the short change. Except, I really would rather that the piece in the block manager not actually know how they get drawn. No, so the funny thing is, Will, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. You have, like... You are right. Everybody that was saying it can still move at the bottom, you're right. It can. People just didn't understand like what that bottom movement was. I think it was just confusion about how the code was working because we don't have the automatic dropping logic yet. Once we have that, I think it will all make sense to everyone. Okay, let me get rid of that stupid search thingy. I need to see the pages again. Okay, where were we? We needed piece. Piece has a draw right here. So this is draw each block. Okay, so then we draw blocks. So blocks know how to draw. Okay, right. Yeah, that's how we did it. So over here, so essentially we're just saying piece blocks draw, right? So we're doing that. But instead of this, we're going to say piece. And instead of CTX, we're going to pass in the actual full context. So that makes that one pointless. And the block manager should have the same thing. So let's do that. Block manager, do you have a draw that just does a for each over your blocks? Oh, it does a filter where... Oh, because it's doing it over the grid. Right. It's doing it over the grid. Okay. That's cool. I forgot. Not sure if I want it to go based on the grid in that thing or not, but yeah, it's kind of questionable. We'll see. Code of the Dino. Abden, hello, welcome. Welcome to the channel. Join the stream. Football. What are we working on today? Pat, so earlier we did a little bit of stuff with our GameTracker. We prepped for having the backend API controller that we're going to call from the front end when we start doing our Vue.js front end. So that is actually what we're going to do there. The piece blocks aren't added until the block is dropped. Yes, the blocks that are on the piece are not part of the block manager until the piece is no longer being used. So that is the concept there. Will, you are correct. Yeah, Pat. So that's actually one of the reasons why we want to do it is because I am interested in Vue, and so you know, hey, why not look at Vue? So that's what we're doing. So that should draw a row at a time. There we go. And then the block manager does not need a draw method. Let me look at that code. Does that look right? We got piece from there, call blocks for each block, draw, pass in the context. Whoa, hang on. There we go. Block manager, grid for each row in the grid, filter it for where blocks. Why don't I call that block still? The block is not null, then for each one of those blocks, draw the block. Okay, that makes sense to me. When I look at Tetris, we do a screen display draw and then continue the animation loop. That looks correct as well. C#. What's the best language to start learning as a newbie? C# is actually a very good language. No. C# is actually a high-level language, so it's actually not very difficult for people to learn. Some of the intricacies of it will take a long time, so it's one of those, you can learn to use it pretty quickly. C# is actually a very good language for beginners. There is a difficult thing about every language that people suggest for beginners. So, for example, some people will try to start learning Python, for example, but then will struggle with the formatting restrictions and other things like that. So with every programming language, there will be challenges, so you do want to stick with it and work on it. But C# is actually a fairly good language as a starting point. I check on one of your courses. Oh, thanks, Ab. I'm glad you liked my GitHub for Windows course. I like it a lot as well. I'm actually working on another course for Pluralsight right now, and it should be a good one. We got things started on that not too long ago, so do expect another one from me in the short term. You know the very basics of Java, but that's it. So C# is very similar to Java. They're both C-based languages, as you can probably guess. They share a lot of syntax. So you'll notice a lot of similarities between C# and Java. And Greendorf strongly recommends learning a statically typed language first. And there you go. So, as I said, Java's a great language, C# is a great language. JavaScript, people are gonna probably freak out in my chat, but I don't like it. I don't think it's a bad language either. I like JavaScript. Yeah, as Will mentions, some of it. So I don't program in Java. I would rather program in C#, but they are going to be similar difficulty levels to learn as a beginner. Piece no longer needs a draw method either, so let's get rid of that. Now that I've gotten rid of those, I want to refresh this page, see if it works, see what I broke. Okay, cool. I did break something. I figured I would. I was moving a bunch of stuff around. There was a good chance of it. Console. Clear rect of undefined, screen display, line 21, screen display, line 21, this, that's underscore context, that's why, that is underscore context, and that is underscore context, underscore context. There we go. And then clear canvas, it probably did canvas without an underscore also. Yep, there it is. So let's go ahead and do this. So we said to draw a rectangle and other things like that, this canvas stuff in here. I want to replace this with this underscore canvas in this file. So that'll fix those, but I want to nice up that code a little bit anyway. And 27. What? Oh, border width is not defined. Yep, it's not. So there we go. That's a constant that didn't make any sense there. That is absolutely a display concern, not a part of the game. So the Tetris game itself should not care about the size of the border, but the part of the code that draws it should. So that's part of the reason we're separating this out. Alfie, I've done, professionally speaking, JavaScript, C#, and Java, all three of those ones that I'm mentioning. I've also done professional Python coding and a bunch of others, but those are the languages that I was recently talking about. Java, I most recently did about a year ago professionally. I've been doing C# for a good long time now. I love it. I do JavaScript professionally as well. And yeah, so as Greendorf mentions, I am not a big fan of JavaScript as a beginner language because there's too much really like mind-bendingly crazy stuff in JavaScript. It's a very powerful and very good language, but I don't think it's a great place for people to start. You're doing this... learning to end up getting a job to learn some SQL along the way. Yeah, so Simon, there are a lot of things so Simon's correct, there are a lot of things you want to learn if you are intending to get a job with this information, you're not just doing it as a hobby. I wish Java had link and template literals and properties. There you go, Specimen. Yeah, so exception handling on Java does turn a lot of people off it. When did you all start developing, and where did you get started? Alfie, I learned about a little over 20 years ago, so I've been programming for a long time. I am a community-taught developer, lots of information from various people. So 20 years ago, internet would was still a viable way to learn some coding stuff, but not as good as it is today. Lambdas and streams are great, but sadly no default way to make SQL queries with lambdas. The other is all the different libraries to common. C# you have everything in the base API. Yes. What turned you off about the exception handling? Specimen. That is a big discussion. Thanks, Will. 30 years ago, when you had to program your computer from a book before you played it professionally, getting on for 20 years. There you go, Simon. Yeah, so many of us had to do some very difficult things. So using computers back at the beginning, I was also a green screen monitored computer user a long time ago, when you actually had to, put in a lot of work just to make your computer do anything. It wasn't just turn it on and click stuff. JavaScript is breaking your mind. Yeah, no, nothing's wrong with you. JavaScript breaks everyone's mind. You eventually figure out how to use it, but yes, JavaScript is a confusing language, so there's stuff that just doesn't make sense in JavaScript. And Elvie, thanks very much for that follow. Greatly appreciated. I'm going to get back to some of this coding here, because I do want to make sure that some of this stuff displays. So hang on, let me go ahead and do this. I need to figure out this code. It's not as nice as I'd like. Okay, so we are still doing that and keeping track of blocks as we draw them, so it looks good. These disappear. Actually, let's do this. Let's make sure that these blocks survive when I get rid of those. Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. Just wanted to confirm things were still working as we expected them to. Alright. Fantastic. Let me go ahead and open this back up again. And we're going to commit those changes into here. So this is moving display. So we're going to extracting screen display for drawing. Wow, we were committing to master. That's funny. Do a little bit of code cleanup here. Okay. But I guess we started the branch, so it's not a big deal. The initial handful of commits can come out of master, and it's not a big deal, because there was no master before that. I dislike checked exceptions, but with lambdas you can quite easily make stuff throw runtime exceptions instead. Yes. Yeah, so Will is correct about that. When touch the piece block is not... I wish they included code contracts natively in C#. There are a lot of things that I wish they had in C#. So Alfie, no. So mobile development is not as hard as a lot of people think. It's actually not that bad. And there are some costs to publish the games, but they're really just expensive for individuals. For businesses, the cost to publish a game is not as much as you'd think. It's just difficult for like an individual person because it can get costly. Okay, so we extracted that out. Now here's one of the changes I want to make. So the piece right now still knows about drawing itself. That is the color we're making it as. So is piece going to know about its color? I think piece needs to know the color that it's going to be. But drawing itself, I don't want it to do. Whoops, not piece, block. Brendan, open up block. So right here, I want it to give me its color, but that's it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to screen display. And draw a frame, draw background, and after we draw the background, which actually I guess we draw background before we draw frame, I want to draw block. Which I guess I'm saying draw block, but I could just as easily draw blocks, plural. Put that there and get rid of the extra curly brace. Okay, so now that we have that, we have the basics of a method that will handle the block drawing, so we don't need that in our block class anymore. The only thing it needs is the color. So we need to know the block and the color. So, hey, SDHO, thanks very much for those biddies. Greatly appreciated. I'm really glad you enjoyed the stream today. Take care. And thank you for that hype there, Greendolf. Much appreciated. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. All right, so block. Which I guess we could say location, and we could just say location and color, to be honest, but we'll take block and color. Block size does not need to live here anymore. It can come over here. It's a constant here, so we're going to say block size and color. And instead of being this X and Y, it's going to be block X and block Y. Color, context, block size, X and Y. Fill a rectangle of that shape. Sometimes I emphasize will when you're speaking. Makes me think you're talking to me. It's what you get for having a name that's got a word that's the same. It's totally your fault. You before you were born, you picked the wrong name for yourself, Will. Now, what is +1 and +10 could use to, yeah, I agree, Simon, I agree. Those were some of the ones that we hadn't pulled out yet. But moving it here gets some of that concept away from this, because I wanted them out of this. So that's part of why we didn't get rid of them last time, is we didn't want them in block at all. I want block to understand that it has a location and a color, and that's basically all a block does. I have a color, and I have a position on a grid, and that is it. It needs nothing else. And that's my goal. Block is simple now. Let's confirm that this code still works, then we can talk about getting rid of those constants, which I agree we need to get rid of. Yeah. I didn't draw the blocks. That was my mistake. Instead of saying block draw, we need to do... which actually, we don't need that. We don't need to pass in color. We can say block.color. Does block expose its color? Block, do you expose your color? Yes, you do. Thank you, block. Okay, color, block, color. Fill styles, block, color. There we go. Draw block. So the reason that didn't work is because I switched up how this logic worked. I now say draw block, block. Instead of passing the context to my object to draw itself, I am instead having it, I'm drawing it here. So there we go. And yep, we will get rid of those magic numbers that are in there and make this code nice. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Oh, that's great. Beautiful, beautiful stuff there. Drop one there, and bonk. Hey, perfect. Good. Yes, Sun Mercury. We are building a little Tetris game from scratch, vanilla.js. Quite fun. Exactly. Well, I was just teasing anyway. That block is crimson and green. What?
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
Jeeb, thank you very much for subscribing with that Twitch Prime sub. And Crimson with the hype. Can we get some hype spammed in chat? I know we have other people in here that subscribe to the channel and have those hype emotes. Please enjoy the hype emotes. And you should now have an egg if you type in chat. Is there an immutable annotation or similar in C# to enforce, validate that the class is immutable? Specimen, there are ways to do that kind of thing in C#, yes. But only kind of, and the language is getting better about that sort of thing. We're gonna have so C# 8 is improving some of that sort of thing. What you want to look at is there are read-only properties and things like that you can use. There's not like an easy way of just out of the box just adding an annotation that just enforces it, but you can code them that way. So yeah, you can use, exactly, as Will's mentioned, we can do read-only properties, and there are types that are as well, and that kind of gets you the immutability, but you have to do it yourself. There's not just an annotation that you just put in and it makes it that way. And welcome, thanks for that follow. Always appreciated. Glad you are here. Okay, so that works. So let's go ahead and get this committed. So that is moving block drawing in here as well. So we just shifted that from one place into here. And that is definitely worthy of a commit. Pull block drawing into screen display. So all drawing takes place here. This is just where we draw. Okay. Those constants are in here now. Okay. I wanted to extract these. And FP3S, thank you very much for that follow as well. Always appreciated. I was thinking more like an annotation that enforces validation of immutability at compile time. Yeah, Specimen. As far as I know, we don't have a thing that does that kind of approach. Though there are some ways to do that in C#. Rubik's, we are doing some JavaScript, so I decided to just do VS Code for this, because this is we're not doing any C#, so why not? VS Code every once in a while, it's fun. It's good stuff. Yes. So the C# language does have some read-only structs and things like that. We can make immutable types. We can do that kind of thing, but there's not like an annotation you can just apply to a class to make it immutable. If you look at C#, the 7.x stuff, as well as 8, you'll find that we're getting a lot more of that immutability power that is more prevalent in the F# world. Because what you have to remember is all these concepts are in .NET already. That's how F# has them. It's just essentially enabling these concepts for C# as well. So C# has been adding a lot of functional concepts. Okay, so what is this? This is constant y, so that is what is the 10? I don't even remember. Is that the border? Border width 10. Now, what are the ones? So the block size. Oh, that's the block buffer. Okay, got it. So block size isn't block size; it's grid size. There's our problem. We're going to say grid size now, which means that this size can become block display size. let's see. Block. Let's just do this. Block size equals, what do we say, 38 then? Because we're losing a pixel on all, is it 38 or 38, right? Then we don't understand the 1. Okay, so... block display size, we'll do that. Okay, we'll figure out those other ones in a moment. Let me check on chat. Read-only is probably my most used keyword in C#. Really, Greendolf? It's not var. Var is a keyword. I would call, I guess it's a reserved word. Could be one of the, could be an access modifier. Might be your most common. So the 1 is a padding. Yeah, it is, yeah. Oh, Simon, thank you for giving me the word I needed. That's why I couldn't come up with it. Simon, you're awesome, thank you. See, there you go, Greendolf. Whoops, not passing. Padding size equals 1. There we go. Padding size, perfect. Const, minus padding size x2. There we go. Got my block size. Boom.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
And thank you for that follow, somebody. So grid plus padding plus border. Let's see if I just butchered that or not. Isn't it convention for global constants to be all caps? We got a witch over here. First off, hi, welcome. Yes, in a lot of languages, the capital letters for constants is common. It's not, as far as I know, it's. I mean, some people use it. So the trick is that is only sort of a global constant-ish. It's kind of like it's global to this file. Because of the way that we're importing these in, I don't think they're going to exist everywhere. But we'll maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. As in the compiler, they use a lot of immutability in there. I'm getting nostalgic for a very good point. I do love Varia. I use all the access modifiers, and I use a lot of link, and I use struct frequently, so it isn't class. Isn't it? And it might actually be read-only, but var is up there. And Tuplane, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce that. Welcome, thanks for following, greatly appreciated. Glad you're here in the stream. Greendolf was there. I have no idea where Greendolf was. Anyway, let's go ahead and try this code. I just want to run this, see if the game's working at all. Yep, looks like we have our buffer too. Dunk. Boom. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So that is definitely working the way we expect it to. Okay. So that means I didn't break anything when I did that. Extract. Block drawing. Constants. There we go. Square only Tetris, ship it. Yeah, exactly. We have a couple of other things we want to do. So before I add the other blocks and the rotations and things like that, I do want to add the automatic dropping. So you're right. We have square-only Tetris right now, which is kind of hilarious.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
In theory, we should actually be able to use any type of piece. That includes a long piece and not just a square. So as an example, I could actually just do that. So if that's the square, let's do a line piece real fast. So top row +1. I don't know if we want to floor or ceiling everything, but we're going to ceiling everything. I could have that wrong. Top row +1, +2, +3. So this is a line piece. Yes, I know my colors are fantastic right now. So now we have only line pieces. And it should work just fine. Should just take us a while to get this one set up. And I was right, we do ceiling it. Best game of Tetris ever always gives you the line piece, so perfect. Does seem to work. Let me see. Farnish, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Greatly appreciated. You can see the pattern of creating using immutable types and immutable. There's a way to do complex. So, are you coding? Lucantus. Yes, we are coding in vanilla JavaScript, which is actually quite fun. Root. Hello there. Hey, viable clan member. Welcome back. In before line shows that rotate. Yeah, that's true. So here's what he's talking about. Let me pull up my console here and check this out. When I hit the up key, it just says, yeah, it totally rotated. We were only doing the square before, which means we did not actually have to write the rotation of these Tetris pieces yet, but we are going to need to do it. So we'll get to that. Yes, blast from the past. As I said, welcome back. And Will's complaining. I will do, as I said, I will do TypeScript. So one of the reasons I'm doing the game jams the way I am is that each one is in its own page. So we can actually do some in vanilla.js, some in TypeScript, some in, we could do some Blazor ones. We can really get away with doing essentially whatever we want because we're separating out each one. The idea being they just need to be able to be their own HTML page that loads up whatever they need. So that's the idea. And I should mention, while there are people here that are definitely new, that if you are having a good time and enjoying our stream today, be sure to hit that follow button to make sure that you get notified the next time we go live. I actually stream 4 times a week here on the channel, on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And if you want to chat with me, you should also check out our Discord, which I linked there in the chat. You can find information down below as well. And the question of can we use Blazor with GitHub Pages? I don't know. Maybe at some point. I don't think right now. But yes, so our example app right here that we're doing, we are hosting in GitHub Pages. So right now, we are limited in what we can do, hence vanilla.js is fine for now. But there are other things that we can do, certainly to get in there. If you are interested in contributing to this or any of our other projects, you could actually work on this Tetris app if you like. As I said, it's just vanilla.js. It is all out there on GitHub at github.com/devchatter. You can find a link in the chat or down below the stream. And anyone that's in here and you're wondering the stuff we're working on, you can actually find where we started this Tetris with Guy Royce as our guest on Tuesday. And you can find a video for that in the video section here on Twitch or on our YouTube channel that, again, is linked over there or down below. And hey, if you're on YouTube watching this right now, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And hello, future person. I hope it's great there. And yes, Will, Guy is awesome. We will definitely be having him back on the stream. And there are other guests as well that I'm working on getting here on the stream, including one guest that I think you're all going to love. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter... Why did the Twitter link not work? Multimo, thank you. Yes, I was fairly certain that we would be able to host Blazor up there, but obviously not having done it. Greendorf, I mean, yeah, I have not asked you to be a guest yet. That's not to say that I won't at some point. You'll understand who the guest is that I'm talking about, and some of my guests reach out to me and they're like, hey, yeah, I would love to be on the stream, and I'm like, cool, let's figure out how to get you on. And then other guests I reach out to and I'm like, hey, yeah, you're Microsoft MVP that I'm friends with, like, let's get you on the stream. Okay, so, no, Will, it's not Scott yet, but it's on my list, man, it's on my list, you know me, So I had a handful of streams where I knew my schedule was going to be crazy around the holidays, so that's why we didn't have those. Scott, it will be Scott eventually, Will, I promise, we've got to have sharp stuff coming. We do. Anyway, I actually just realized that I do have to end the stream on time today, so I think this is a good point to wrap things. We managed to get that stuff extracted. We did some interesting stuff with our GameTracker. If you missed the beginning of our stream, do go check it out. As I said, it's recorded. I want to make sure that I thank everybody that showed up today. A couple of other things. If you are a beginner... Oh, I just killed the bot a minute ago because I started wrapping up. Derp. I shut down my bot because I was like, yeah, I'm ending the stream, so I'll just close that. That was dumb. No, Cat did not show up today. Sorry about that, everyone. So one of the other things that I want to mention to everybody that's in here is that I do a series on this stream. I have started doing it again, I should say. I did it in the summer, and I'm doing it again. It's called Learn to Code in C#. So if you are one of the beginners that is here watching me code either my C# or my JavaScript, I am doing a series called Learn to Code in C#. It won't be exclusively C# because I am going to try to cover a little bit of web development, so we will get into some other things from that. I probably won't do JavaScript in it because that's really a separate language, but I will probably show some basic HTML, CSS stuff as we cover that as part of learning web dev in ASP.NET Core. What I've been doing for those streams is I invite on a guest who is a beginner programmer, and by beginner I mean he started learning with us here on the stream. We've done 2 sessions with him, and he is another streamer. He does a gaming stream. His name is Mr. Bubs, and I have a feeling there are some people that love Mr. Bubs here in the chat right now. They're the regulars that have been here for those shows, and we just put him up in the corner up there, and we do a dual stream when we do that, and so he's up there, I'm on his stream as well, and we work together as he figures out coding, and so essentially I'm guiding him through some exercises I've created. If you are someone that is a beginner coder and you want to learn how to program, maybe you've never even coded at all, first off I would tell you check out our Learn to Code series. You can actually watch both of those videos of those sessions and follow along. You can find information linked in the chat over there. It's the events section of DevChatter as well, so if you are just on the page, you can just go up here to events, and you'll see past events, and you can see our Learn to Code episodes are right here. You can take a look at those, and you can actually watch the videos from those and follow along. So if you load up the earlier events, you'll see that there's Learn to Code episode 1 right here. You can watch that video, or Learn to Code episode 2 and watch the video. You watch those, you'll be all caught up, and you'll actually have programmed a bunch of stuff. So if you want to get reminders of those specifically, you can click on the Remind Me button here in this, or you can just follow the channel and just show up every day, and that works as well. And if you want to know what our schedule is because you want to watch more of our stream, you can find out our regular schedule by looking down below. There's information about that, but there's also in the chat over there, you can actually ask our bot and it will tell you our schedule in your time zone based on you telling it, roughly speaking, where you are. So if you lived in Ohio, that would be what the schedule is. If you lived in England, well, it figured it out anyway, so that's funny. Schedule Germany, schedule We could say a city, for example, so you could do Seattle. So if it can figure out where it is, it'll tell you. So it's cool stuff. We build that on the stream, by the way, so if you want to see any of that kind of stuff, that's usually what we're doing here. We have no specific language. We're open to pretty much anything. We usually do C#, but we do a decent amount of JavaScript here on the channel as well, and we've done a little bit of non-C# and JavaScript. So, yep, those are the stream times. We are pretty late for some parts of the world, but hopefully our schedule works pretty well. So, did it figure out where anybody is? Yes, Simon. That is a really, really great location that no one here can, I certainly cannot pronounce the name of that location, but I know of it. So, yep. Awesome. As I said, be sure to click the follow button to make sure that you get notified when our stream goes live. I look forward to seeing all of you on our next episode. It will be on Monday. And as I said, I will be getting some guests on the stream for the coming week. Should be a lot of fun. And there is a stream that I'm planning on doing. I have planned what we're going to build and with whom, but we need to find a date that works. So it's hopefully going to be this year, but if not, it'll be early January. And, well, actually, maybe not early January, sometime in January, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks for spending your Saturday with me. And I will talk to you all in the next one. Let me go ahead and roll the credits, because I haven't rolled my credits in a little while. And thanks for that follow, by the way. So thank you to STHO for hanging out and chatting with us, and those cheers. And our moderators, S&B Greendolf and Stoolpenner, for hanging out and helping out with the chat. All of these fine people who followed us here in the stream today, thank you for stopping by and giving us that appreciation. Hopefully we will see you in our future streams. And Echo Strike and DGB, thank you very much for that follow, DGB. And, sorry, I should say sub, thank you for that sub. And, welcome, so have a great one, everyone. I will see a lot of you in the, DevChatter Discord chatting later, so take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Happy coding.